sports, and documentaries. So catch all your updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN. From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN. From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
From the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt, this is ATN International News. First, the headlines. 36 corpses pulled from illegal mine. Army condemns killing of soldiers in Al Jazeera. Suspected outbreak of Marburg virus kills 8. Biden to remove Cuba sanctions. Trudeau faces disagreement over U.S. tariffs. Italian governments to curb fake hotel reviews. Meta policy changes do not fit Brazilian policy.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in
South African rescuers have pulled out 36 dead bodies and 82 survivors from a gold mine deep underground in 2 days of operations. Police said on Tuesday, adding that the survivors would all face illegal mining and immigration charges. Police began laying siege to the mine in August and cut off food and water supplies for months in an attempt to force the miners to the surface so they could be arrested as part of a crackdown on illegal mining. Hundreds more men and dozens more bodies are still trapped on the ground, according to a miners' rights group that issued footage on Monday showing corpses and skeletal survivors in the mine. Rescue operations, which involve the use of a metal cage to recover men and bodies from a mine shaft more than 2 kilometers on the ground, will continue for days, with Presidency Kombunzo Shaveni said in November, "We are not sending help to criminals. We are going to smoke them out." But a court said in December that volunteers should be allowed to send down supplies to the trapped men, and another ruling last week ordered the states to launch a rescue operation which began on Monday. All 82 that have been arrested are facing illegal mining, trespassing and contravention of the Immigration Act charges, police said in a statement, referring to all those who pulled out alive on Monday and Tuesday. Sudanese army on Tuesday condemned what it called individual violations in Sudan's Al Jazeera in recent days after rights groups blamed the army and its allies for ethnically targeted attacks on civilians. The attacks largely targeted people from Western Sudan living in the central state because of accusations they collaborated with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, which is fighting the army in a near 2-year civil war. Earlier this week, the Sudanese army and allied forces recaptured the state capital, Wad Madani, for the RSF, marking a possible turning point in the devastating conflict. Emergency lawyers, a human rights group, said that 13 people were killed in a farming settlement known as Kambo Taiba after the army advanced through the sea. It said the attacks followed hate speech linking residents to the RSF. The group also cited other incidents of civilians being rounded up, tortured or executed in recent days. The export could not be verified by reporters. The armed forces condemned the individual violations that have recently occurred in some areas of Al Jazeera following the cleansing of Wad Madani, and at the same time affirms its keenness to hold accountable anyone involved in any violations that affect any person in the Kanabi settlement for farmers from Western Sudan and villages. The army said on Tuesday, Al Jazeera was the site of a year-long campaign of looting and violence against civilians by RSF fighters that drove hundreds of thousands of some residents away. Some residents said that the young men from the long marginalized Kanabi participated in the RSF raids. UN Libya mission expressed on Tuesday its alarm over what it said was footage circulating on social media featuring brutal torture and ill treatment of detainees in the Jannada detention facility in eastern Libya. Reporters was not able to independently verify the location nor date of the footage. However, architectural details seen on the videos, including the type of tiles on the floor, the wall painting and cell bars, are consistent with foul imagery of the prison from corroborating reports. As UNSMIL continues to verify the circumstances of the circulated footage, it strongly condemns these acts that constitute serious violations of international human rights law. It said the UN mission said the footage was consistent with what it described as documented patterns of human rights violations in detention facilities across Libya. It also called for an immediate investigation into the accusations, adding that it is coordinating with the General Command of Libyan National Army for unrestricted access to UNSMIL's human rights officers and other independent monitors to the Jannada facility, as well as other detention centers under their control. There was no immediate comment from Libyan authorities regarding the videos or the UN report. The North African country has plunged into chaos and lawlessness after the toppling of the regime of former dictator Muammar Gaddafi in NATO-backed uprising in 2011. Zimbabwe's ruling ZANU-PF party wants to extend President Emmerson Mnangagwa's term in office by 2 years until 2030. A party spokesperson said this on Tuesday. He gave no details of how this could be achieved or whether constitutional changes would be sought to enable the 82-year-old ZANU-PF leader to stay on. Zimbabwe's constitution limits the presidential office to 2 5-year terms, and Mnangagwa's second and final term as president expires in 2028. The issue of the president staying in power is a party position which has been agreed upon, the party's director of information, Farai Marapira, told reporters by telephone. Asked whether that meant changing the constitution to extend presidential terms to 7 years, he replied, "The modalities have not been decided." Mnangagwa, a former spy chief, has said publicly that he will leave when his term expires. But the idea of Zimbabwe scrapping term limit was mooted at a ZANU-PF conference last October. Suspected outbreak of the Marburg virus in northwest Tanzania has infected 9 people, killing 8 of them, the World Health Organization has said, weeks after an outbreak of the disease was declared over in neighboring Rwanda. The viral hemorrhagic fever has a fatality rate as high as 88% and is from the same virus family as the one responsible for Ebola, which is transmitted to people from fruit bats, which are endemic to the part of East Africa. The World Health Organization said it received reliable reports of suspected cases in the Kagera region of Tanzania on January 10, with symptoms of headache, high fever, back pain, diarrhea, vomiting blood, muscle weakness, and finally external bleeding. Samples from 2 patients were awaiting testing at Tanzania's National Laboratory for confirmation of the outbreak, World Health Organization said in a statement on Tuesday. The patients' contacts, including healthcare workers, have been identified and were being followed up, World Health Organization reported. The outbreak in Rwanda, which shares a border with Tanzania's Kagera region, infected 66 people and killed 15 before it was declared over on December 20th. Marburg virus can spread between people through direct contact or via blood and other bodily fluids of infected people, including contaminated bedding or clothing. An outbreak in the Kagera region in March 2023 killed 6 people and lasted for nearly 2 months. Biden administration said on Tuesday that it would remove Cuba from its terrorism blacklist, while Cuba said separately it would release upward of 500 prisoners from its jails. Dual announcements poised to reshape U.S.-Cuba relations just days before Donald Trump takes office. President Joe Biden's announcement effectively rolled back many of the sanctions put in place by President-elect Trump during his previous term ending in 2021. If they endure, they would represent the most significant advance in U.S.-Cuba relations since the Obama-era detente. Biden's announced plans, subject to the review of Congress and the incoming Trump administration, would lift Trump's 2021 designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, easing sanctions on an island already suffering a deep economic crisis. They would also revoke a 2017 Trump order that restricted financial transactions with some military and government-linked Cuban entities, according to a senior administration official. Biden also seeks to prevent individuals from filing lawsuits against both Cuban entities and foreign companies under the Helms-Burton Act over property seized following Fidel Castro's 1959 revolution, the official said. Just 1 hour after the U.S. announcement, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel announced his government planned to gradually release 553 prisoners following talks with Pope Francis, Cuba faced sharp criticism from rights groups, the United States and the European Union following the imprisonment of hundreds of protesters after a riot on July 11, 2021, the largest since Castro's revolution. It was not immediately clear whether the prisoners to be released had been detained following those protests. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, facing disagreement over how Canada should respond to threatened U.S. tariffs, will hold a cabinet retreat next week focused on defending Canadian interests, his office said on Tuesday. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has promised to impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada, which economists say would trigger a deep recession. Canada sends 75% of all exported goods and services to the United States. Trudeau, who will step down as Prime Minister in early March, is promising countermeasures if Trump carries out his threat and wants a united response from the federal government and 10 provinces. The January 20 to 21 cabinet meeting will coincide with Monday's inauguration of Trump, who is unhappy at what he says is lax security on the joint border. He has also mused about making Canada the 51st state. U.S. imports from China finished the year strong after some companies stockpiled shipments of apparel, toys, furniture and electronics ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's plan to impose new tariffs that could revive a trade war between the world's economic superpowers. Trump, who has threatened to slap tariffs of 10% to 60% on goods from China, takes office on January 20th. During his first term, Trump mainly targeted Chinese parts and components. Economists and trade experts predict his next wave of tariffs could apply to finished goods. There has thus been an uptick in the exports of final goods from China to the U.S. as importers aim to front-run possible tariffs on consumer items, said Frederick Newman, chief Asia economist at HSBC in Hong Kong. Chinese trade officials on Monday said December exports surged to record levels and cited concerns about escalating trade protectionism in the U.S. and in Europe, while some U.S. retailers have rushed in goods to avoid the cost hit from potential new tariffs. Teasing out the true effect on overall import gain is difficult because importers keep such data private. Further complicating the analysis, resilient U.S. shoppers have been feeling demand and some importers brought in safety stocks to protect against disruptions from Houthi attacks on shipping near the Suez Canal trade shortcuts and a labor dispute at seaports on the U.S. East Coast and Gulf of Mexico. Trump also has vowed to tariff goods from any other countries, including North American neighbors Mexico and Canada. As a result, several categories of U.S. imports from all geographic sources posted meaningful gains during the fourth quarter, according to S&P Global Market Intelligence. Brazil's government said on Tuesday it is seriously concerned about Meta platforms recently announced changes to its hate speech policy, adding that it believes they do not comply with the country's legislation. Facebook owner Meta last week reduced curbs on discussions around contentious topics such as immigration and gender identity, while also scrapping its fact-checking program in the United States. The Brazilian government ordered the social media company, which also owns Instagram and Threads, to explain its plans, which President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva had previously labeled extremely serious. Brazil is a top market for Meta, where government data show Facebook alone has about 100 million active users. Social media platform X was temporarily suspended in the country last year for not complying with local law. The government did not immediately clarify which aspect of Meta's policy might be illegal, but said the latest changes could represent fertile ground for the violation of laws that protect fundamental rights of Brazilian citizens. Local legislation forbids some forms of hate speech, such as racial slurs and remarks that attack people for their religion. Meta, in a letter to the South American country, reiterated that changes to the fact-checking program for now would only apply to the U.S. and said that changes to its community standards were limited to the hate speech policy. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said on Tuesday his government would gradually release 553 prisoners following talks with the Vatican, a decision announced just hours after Biden administration said it would loosen a host of sanctions on the island. Cuba praised Biden's decision to ease restrictions as correct, but said the actions may be too little, too late. Adding future U.S. administrations could reverse them. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said on Tuesday that he will create a new government agency called the External Revenue Service to collect tariffs, duties, and all revenue from foreign sources as he readies new import tariffs ahead of his inauguration next week. Trump said in a social media post that he would create the department on January 20th, the day he takes office as president for a second term, adding that Americans have been taxed for too long by the Internal Revenue Service. Through soft and pathetically weak trade agreements, the American economy has delivered growth and prosperity to the world while taxing themselves. It is time for that to change, the Republican said in a post on Truth Social. We will begin charging those that make money off of us with trade, and they will start paying finally their fair share. A spokesperson for Trump's transition team could not immediately be reached for comments to clarify Trump's statement or explain how the New York agency would work. Trump did not specify whether the new agency would replace collections of tariffs, duties, fees, and fines by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or collection of taxes on foreign corporate and individual income by the IRS. It was also unclear whether the move would create additional government bureaucracy, which would appear to go against the plans of Trump's informal Department of Government Efficiency, an effort led by billionaire Elon Musk and former biotech executive Vivek Ramaswamy, aimed at finding trillions of dollars in budget savings by streamlining government operations. Canadian Innovation Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne on Tuesday said he would not run in the race to replace Justin Trudeau as leader of the ruling Liberal Party. Champagne, seen as a leading contender, told the Toronto branch of the Canada Club that he would spend the rest of the government's term focusing on ministerial responsibilities. It was probably one of the most difficult decisions of my life, but I think it's the right one at the right time, he said. Trudeau said earlier this month he was stepping down and would stay in office until the party named a new leader, a decision that is due on March 9. Champagne is the fifth major cabinet minister to announce he will not take part in the race. Polls show that the Liberals, who first came to power in November 2015, are set to lose the next election. The vote, which has to be held by October 20th, looks set to take place in May. More than 1 million people, over half of them children, are now displaced within Haiti, where gang violence continues unabated, despite the start of the United Nations-backed security mission last year, UN data showed on Tuesday. The tally of 1.04 million displaced people released by the International Organization for Migration represents a threefold increase from December 2023, when 315,000 people were homeless. Never before have so many people been displaced by violence in the country, according to UN data. Haiti needs sustained humanitarian assistance right now to save and protect lives, said IOM Director General Amy Pope in a statement sent to journalists, stressing that the need to address the root causes of the violence and instability. Armed gangs within Haiti now have near total control over the capital, Port-au-Prince, and wide remit over the rest of the country. An international mission approved last year, tasked with restoring order, has so far seen just a fraction of troops deploying, although 2 contingents of Guatemalan soldiers arrived this month to boost the mission's forces. IOM spokesperson Kennedy Okot on Monday told a Geneva press briefing that spaces in shelters were running short, with many struggling to obtain basic services like food and water. Deportations of migrants from the Dominican Republic and elsewhere have added to the strain on communities, he added. What has really made this worse is the fact that we have seen over and over deportations still occurring back to Haiti, where communities are already struggling to basically survive, he said. British Minister responsible for financial services and fighting corruption resigned on Tuesday after weeks of questions over her financial ties to her aunt, Sheikh Hasina, ousted last year as Prime Minister of Bangladesh. Tulip Siddique, 42, had repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer said last week he had full confidence in her. The resignation of a second government minister in 2 months is a blow to Starmer, whose approval ratings have plunged since his Labour Party won a general election in July. Siddique was handed the portfolio for financial services policy after the election, a role that included responsibility for measures against money laundering. In a letter to Starmer, Siddique said she was resigning because her position was likely to be a distraction from the work of the government. The government's ethics advisor said in his letter to Starmer, released at the same time, that although Siddique had not breached the ministerial code of conduct, he found it regrettable she was not more alert to the potential reputational risk from her family's close association with Bangladesh. After facing further scrutiny over the use of properties in Britain linked to Hasina and her supporters, Siddique referred herself to the government's independent ethics advisor. Siddique lived in a North London property given to her family in 2009 by Moin Ghani, a Bangladeshi lawyer who has represented Hasina's government. Documents filed with Companies House and the Land Registry show. She also acquired a separate property in London in 2004 without paying for it from a developer linked to the Awami League, Hasina's political party, the Financial Times reported this month. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with the rest of our stories.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN. From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Every day our lives are changed by history.
Leader of Moldova's breakaway region of Transnistria has traveled to Moscow for talks to resolve an energy crisis following the suspension of Russia gas deliveries, Transnistria's news agency reported on Tuesday. Transnistria has suffered widespread power cuts since January 1, when Russia's Gazprom suspended gas exports to the region, citing an unpaid Moldovan debt of $709 million that Chisinau does not recognize as valid. Moscow blames the suspension of gas supplies on Moldova and Ukraine, which refused to extend a 5-year gas transit deal that expired on December 31st on the grounds that the proceeds help fund Russia's invasion. Moldova says Moscow could use an alternative route to continue supplying Transnistria, which was receiving gas via Ukraine. Transnistria's separatist leader Vadim Krasnoseletsky held talks to overcome the energy crisis. His press secretary Denis Podgony was quoted as saying by Novosti Predstrovia agency. Moscow blames the suspension of gas supplies on Moldova and Ukraine, which refused to extend a 5-year gas transit deal that expired on December 31st on the grounds that the proceeds help fund Russia's invasion. Moldova says Moscow could use an alternative route to continue supplying Transnistria, which was receiving gas. Transnistria's separatist leader Vadim Krasnoseletsky held talks to overcome the energy crisis. His press secretary Denis was quoted as saying by Novosti Predstrovia agency. Italy's government on Tuesday unveiled a draft law to regulate online reviews of hotels, restaurants and tourist attractions in a bid to stop fake or paid reviewers. The law, which needs parliamentary approval to come into force, introduces a number of hurdles for would-be reviewers, including having to provide verifiable ID as well as proof that they visited the place they want to pass judgment on. Reviews will have to be posted within 2 weeks of the visit in question and can be removed if they are untrue or, in any case, 2 years after they were posted. The bill did not explain who would decide if a critic was false. The proposed law, which can be amended in Parliament, will also outlaw reviews that are paid for or sponsored via incentives, an on-the-hand practice that is fairly commonplace. Fake reviews are already illegal, but policing violations is difficult. The bill suggests giving the task of checking on reviews and handing out eventual fines to Italy's antitrust watchdog. The draft regulations were welcomed by some industry lobbies, although there were concerns over privacy and fears that the ban on anonymous reviews might drastically reduce the number of online comments about hotels and restaurants. Greek Prime Minister Kyrios Mitsotakis urged the European Commission on Tuesday to tackle power price discrepancies across the bloc, repeating previous calls for an electricity market with a more even sharing of electricity. Greece and other countries in Southeastern Europe have seen power prices rising much faster than their northern peers since the Ukraine war interrupted Russian pipeline gas supplies to Europe. After power prices spiked in Greece last summer, Mitsotakis wrote to the European Commission demanding a solution to the unacceptable differences in electricity costs across Europe. In a new letter to the European Commission, seen by reporters, Mitsotakis said power prices remained elevated and asked Brussels faster against electricity cost disparities, which he said violated the rule of the free flow of goods in the bloc. In electricity, we need a new push on the internal EU market, he added, proposing an EU task force to look at regulatory and technical solutions and new investments to help boost across-border power flows in the 27-nation bloc. The EU has estimated that it would need to spend 554 billion euros in upgrading its decade to ensure grids can carry larger amounts of green energy. Impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol was arrested and questioned by authorities on Wednesday in relation to a criminal insurrection investigation, saying he was only cooperating with what he called an illegal probe to avoid violence. His arrest, the first ever for an incumbent South Korean president, is the latest head-spinning development for one of Asia's most vibrant democracies, even though the country has a history of persecuting leaders. Since lawmakers voted to impeach him and remove him from duties after his short-lived December 3rd declaration of martial law, Yoon has been holed up at his hillside residence, guarded by a small army of presidential security that blocked a previous arrest attempt. He agreed to come in for questioning after more than 3,000 police officers determined to arrest him marched in on his residence in the early hours of Wednesday. Authorities now have 48 hours to question Yoon, a warrant to detain him for up to 20 days or release him. However, Yoon is refusing to talk and has not agreed to have interviews with investigators recorded on video, a CIO official said. The CIO said it had no information on why Yoon was refusing to talk. The questioning will continue after Yoon finishes a dinner of bean paste soup, the CIO official said, though late-night questioning has not been decided. Yoon's lawyers have but it was issued by a court in the wrong jurisdiction, and the team set up to investigate him had no legal mandate to do so. A warrant to search Yoon at his residence, a copy of which was seen by reporters, referred to Yoon as ringleader of insurrection. Australia summoned the Russian ambassador over reports of a Melbourne man who had been killed after being captured by Russia while fighting for Ukraine. Anthony Albanese said on Wednesday the Australian government had asked Russian authorities to immediately confirm the status of Oscar Jenkins and remained gravely concerned over reports that he had been killed, Albanese said during a media conference. We will await the facts to come out, but if there has been any harm caused to Oscar Jenkins, that's absolutely reprehensible, and the Australian government will take the strongest action possible, Albanese said. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Australia had been maintaining a very high difficult relationship for many years with Russia under different governments. Jenkins, a teacher from Melbourne, was serving alongside he was captured by Russia last year as a prisoner of war, Australian media reported. A video taken at the time showed him dressed in court uniform, being asked if he was a mercenary, reports said. Dense fog and cold weather delayed train and flight departures in several parts of northern India, including its capital, New Delhi, on Wednesday. India's weather office issued an orange alert for Delhi, the second highest warning level, forecasting dense to very dense fog in many areas. Visibility at Delhi's main airport was between 0 to 100 meters, the weather office said, and more than 40 trains across northern India were delayed because of fog, local media reported. Some aircraft departures from Delhi were delayed, airport authorities said on social media platform X, warning that flights lacking the CAT-3 navigation system that enables landing despite low visibility would face difficulties. Delhi's main airport handles about 1,400 flights every day. Low visibility and fog over Delhi may lead to some delays, the country's largest airline, Indigo, said in a social media post. Local media showed images of vehicles crawling along highways through the fog and people huddled indoors as the temperature dipped to 7 degrees Celsius. Delhi was ranked as the world's most polluted city in live rankings by Swiss group IQA on Wednesday, with a reading of 254 ranked as very unhealthy. The Indian capital has been battling poor air quality and smog since the beginning of winter. Japan's Nippon Steel remains interested in working with the incoming administration of Donald Trump to try to seal a takeover of U.S. Steel, its Vice Chairman Takeru Mori said an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal. Last week, Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel filed two lawsuits after U.S. President Joe Biden blocked $14.9 billion buyout of the American steel maker by the Japanese firm. President-elect Donald Trump takes office on Monday. Enforcement of Biden's order, which gave the parties 30 days to unwind the transaction, was postponed until June after the company sued the U.S. president, alleging he violated the Constitution by depriving them of due process when he blocked the deal. Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel will do whatever it takes to close this transaction, Mori said in the WSJ piece. We believe our case is strong and we look forward to our day in court. Cleveland's Cliffs, whose earlier bid for U.S. Steel was rejected by the latter's board, is partnering with Pierre Nucor to prepare a potential all-cash bid for the company again, a source told reporters this week. We remain interested in exploring possible partnerships with the new administration to invest in and grow U.S. Steel to benefit American workers, customers, and national security, Mori, Nippon Steel's key negotiator on the deal, said in the opinion piece. The decision to file lawsuits was not taken lightly, Mori said, while reiterating that Japan is one of U.S. closest allies and the company did not believe there was any national security concern regarding the takeover. Police in India's southern state of Kerala have arrested 44 men accused of raping an 18-year-old girl over a period of 5 years, a police official said on Tuesday, in a case that has shocked the coastal tourist resort. The victim, an athlete who belongs to the so-called lower caste community known as Dalits, told police in a statement that she was sexually abused by 62 people over a period of 5 years. Police have identified 58 of those men, some of whom are minors, and arrested 44 over the last 2 days, officials said. We have identified the remaining 14 and they would be arrested soon. The deputy superintendent of police in the Pathanamthitta district, where the crimes took place, P.S. Nandakuma, told reporters. The case came to light after the girl narrated the gang rape to a volunteer during a gender awareness program. Nandakuma, who heads the investigation, said details of how the crimes were committed were still being investigated. In her statements to the police, the victim said abuse began when she was 13 after her neighbor allegedly raped her. Local media reported that 4 of the accused were minors under Indian law. Accused in rape cases that involve lower castes do not immediately get bail. Reporters was not only able to reach any of the accused for a comment. There were more than 31,000 reported rapes in 2022 in India, the latest year for which data is available, and conviction rates are notoriously low. Iran never plotted to kill Republican U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said in an NBC News interview on Tuesday, denying past claims from Trump and the U.S. government. In November, the U.S. Justice Department charged an Iranian man in connection with an alleged plot ordered by Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard Corps to assassinate the U.S. president-elect. Law enforcement thwarted the alleged plan before any attacks was carried out. Trump also said last year during the U.S. election campaign that Iran may have been behind attempts to kill him. None whatsoever, Pezeshkian said when asked if there was an Iranian plan to kill Trump. We have never attempted this to begin with, and we never will. Trump, who won last year's U.S. election and will take office on Monday, survived 2 assassination attempts during the campaign, one in September while he was golfing on his coast in West Palm Beach, Florida, and another during a July rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Investigators have found no evidence of Iranian involvement in either of these cases. Iran has also previously denied U.S. claims of interfering in American affairs, including through cyber operations. Tehran says Washington has interfered in its affairs for decades, citing events ranging from a 1953 coup against a prime minister to the 2020 killing of its military commander in a U.S. drone strike. And that's the international news for today. I am Francis Necker. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember, peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Coming up next is business news. Please stay with us.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economic, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.